What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 2020 NFL Mock Draft 2.0, hosted by the Underdog Sports Network, and your host, as always, Andrew Erickson. You can find me on Twitter at @AndrewErickson_, and we're going to dive right into this mock draft, my second mock draft. Make sure you go check out the other one and see what edits I've made on this second mock draft for the 2020 NFL class. Here we go. All right, starting us off, we have Joe Burrow, quarterback, going to the Cincinnati Bengals. Guys, we don't need to overthink this. Cincinnati, don't overthink this. Don't trade away all your picks to Miami to get somebody different. Just take the guy that is the best quarterback in the class. Just take him. Don't overthink it. Lock it in. Next pick, Chase Young again. Not too much of a surprise here, but I think that he's the best defensive player in the draft. And when you look at the way the Redskins could potentially build out that D-line, you combine a guy like Chase Young with Montez Sweat, Daron Payne, Ryan Kerrigan, Jonathan Allen. That would be five first-round picks on the defense. So building it up similar to how the 49ers had a lot of first-round picks on that defensive line, you're able to create a lot of pressure, which impacts the passing game, which ultimately helps you win more games. So that's what I'm going to go with the Redskins at number 2 in Chase Young. At number 3, we're going to go with Jeffrey Okudah to the Detroit Lions. I think Okudah is going to be identified as that lockdown corner for Detroit. Again, they traded away Darius Slay. There's always a potential that they could end up trading this pick, but I think that if they ultimately stay there, I think that Darius Slay is the pick there at number 3. Pretty chalky, haven't changed much, but now things are going to get exciting. So stay tuned and get locked in. All right, number 4, we have the Giants on the clock. They could go offensive tackle here, but I think that Isaiah Simmons is actually the pick here. Linebacker, safety, hybrid from Clemson. And the cat's out of the bag here, guys. Gettleman, the news has been leaked, and they're zeroing in on Isaiah Simmons. They're set up at tackle right now. They have Nate Solder. They have Cameron Fleming. So those guys really aren't as much as an option, I think, at tackle. And Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl actually mentioned that I thought was really insightful was that any team in the top 10 that takes an offensive tackle over Isaiah Simmons or Derek Brown is clearly drafting for need rather than best player available. Gettleman, drafted Saquon Barkley with the number 2 pick because he was the, unreal talent, not a need at all. So they're going to take the best talent here, and that's Isaiah Simmons at number 4 to the New York Giants. At number 5, we're going with a tackle here, Mekhi Becton. I just mentioned about how the teams are going to make mistakes. I think Miami makes a little bit of a mistake here. But I think ultimately they need to build out the offensive line because their offensive line is pretty terrible. If you look at last year, Julian Davenport is their current left tackle. PFF grades last year, 53rd out of 65 eligible left tackles. Yikes. I do not want to be a rookie quarterback starting behind a offensive lineman of Julian Davenport's, especially on my blind side, potentially if it's not Tua. So Mekhi Becton is going to be the long-term answer there, our left tackle, replacing Laramie Tunsil, because I think it's really important that if they draft a rookie quarterback, and they have so much draft capital even next year, like they could draft, a guy like Herbert, and maybe it doesn't work out, because if they have a terrible offensive line, it is so hard to evaluate a rookie quarterback. We've seen this before with Jared Goff. It was so hard to tell. I mean, well, maybe not Jared Goff's not a great example because he's not that great anymore, but when he was in that first year with Jeff Fisher, it was just terrible because that line was just a mess. So it's really hard to evaluate rookie quarterbacks when you have no offensive line. So I think Mekhi Becton is the pick here for the Dolphins at number 5. And that leaves the second quarterback going off the board. Yes, it is Tua Tagovailoa. I think the best fit really is here for him with the Chargers in LA. He doesn't need to start right away. He can play behind Tyrod Taylor. Eventually, he'll probably beat out Tyrod Taylor. But again, this team is in a win-now mode, which is kind of weird to think about. They don't really have a lot of cap. They actually have a lot of cap space, but they're the second oldest team. So I think that going with Tua makes the most sense because I just don't think that – I think that these free agent quarterbacks like Winston and a guy like Cam Newton, they're afraid that he's hurt, he's injured. And Jameis Winston, I don't know if Jameis Winston actually helps you win more games. Maybe you score more points, but the defense might score more points too. And that Chargers defense is really good. So I think that Tua gives them the upside and maybe keeps pushing Taylor to be a better quarterback in 2020. At number 7, the Carolina Panthers need to improve that defense. So I'm going with Derek Brown, give them a face to the defense. And the Panthers have been kind of rumored to be tanking potentially. And I think that going with Derek Brown is a guy that's probably not going to make that much of an impact in terms of win-losses. It is really just a good way to continue to build out a team for the long term. So I don't think drafting Derek Brown's like, oh, they're all in. I think it like gives them, hey, like this is gonna be a good building block piece for the future. But realistically, in year one, his impact is not gonna be like, oh, well, because they drafted Derek Brown, they won 5 more games. If not, they probably will end up losing more games. But he'll give them a foundation piece moving forward as one of the better defensive players overall in this draft class. At number 8, the Arizona Cardinals are on the clock, and they need to get some protection. They went out and got DeAndre Hopkins as a wide receiver, so they're going to get Tristan Wirfs here, offensive tackle, out of Iowa. I think that he is the best scheme fit for the Cardinals. Uber athletic, can play offensive line across the board with tackle and guard. That works with a mobile quarterback. You want to have mobile offensive linemen because they're going to be moving around, pulling guards, etc., etc. So Tristan Wirfs is the pick here. It's just too perfect of a fit at offensive line for the Arizona Cardinals. At number 9, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock, and they're going with K'Lavon Chaisson, edge rusher from LSU. I love my LSU Tigers, so we're going to turn from a Tiger to a Jaguar. A lot of Tigers talk going on, Tiger King. But K'Lavon Chaisson, Jaguars trade away their entire defense. Yakinen Ngakoue, I cannot imagine he's going to be playing defense on Jacksonville anytime soon. He's probably going to get traded. He's definitely not playing for the Jaguars anytime soon, so they need to replace him with another type of pass rusher, just kind of rebuild that defense. And I think K'Lavon Chaisson, it makes the most sense here at number 9. At number 10, we've got the Cleveland Browns, and they desperately need to get some help for Baker Mayfield on offensive line. They already helped out by getting Conklin to play right tackle, so they're going to get Jedrick Wills, who can play both left tackle and right tackle, to also play left tackle. That way they have some depth in case of injuries happen, just because they got to protect Baker Mayfield. Like, we saw this when I was mentioning it before. It's really hard to evaluate a quarterback's play with terrible offensive line play. And that's what happened with Baker Mayfield last year. He regressed so poorly because of the fact that the offensive line was so bad. They need to get him, and this also is a tell sign. If Baker Mayfield struggles again, despite upgrades at offensive line, that's a real problem for the Browns moving forward. At number 11, what also helps is getting good receivers for your young quarterbacks. Finally, CeeDee Lamb, the first receiver for me, is going off the board here. I think that he's the perfect fit for a guy like Sam Darnold. Gives him an actual receiving threat outside of Jamison Crowder. Robbie Anderson is gone, and I think that Lamb is a better fit in this offense for Jeudy. He is more of a yards after the catch kind of guy, more of a physical player. I just think that he is going to be a little bit better. I think that Jeudy obviously is a little bit better in the slot, which is kind of what Crowder's already doing. So Lamb can play a little bit more outside and give a big target for Sam Darnold. At number 12, Henry Ruggs, guys. I just think that the fit here is too good with Oakland. I think that Al Davis, if he was still around, he would be like, you didn't draft a guy with a 4.27? Like, you need to draft a guy with a 4.27. Like, Al Davis was all about the speed. So I think Mark Davis is going to be like, whoa, 4.27? Like, he's got to be on my team. I want him. But Henry Ruggs is just going to open his offense up for a lot of things. Just, working those underneath routes with guys like that slot receiver that they got there, the guy from Clemson, Hunter Renfrow, that's his name, and Darren Waller, letting them operate. Henry Ruggs is going to open up a ton of space for those guys. Hopefully, as well, Tyrell Williams has got some speed on the outside as well, so, just giving more deep threats. And I know a lot of people talk about how Derek Carr wasn't a deep threat. He hasn't really thrown the ball deep. But a lot of times when you look at A-Dot belongs to the receivers. And before this Antonio Brown, scenario happened, Antonio Brown was one of the best deep threat receivers in the NFL, and they had brought in Tyrell Williams and Antonio Brown to play with Derek Carr. I don't think what the offense we saw last year was really indicative of what we truly were expecting with John Gruden and Derek Carr at the quarterback position. I think that they are going to air it out more, which is why they're bringing in guys like, for example, they brought in Nelson Aguilar. They are going to draft Henry Ruggs. Like, Tyrell Williams hopefully will be healthy. Like, those are guys that can all take the top off the defense, which is why I think that they're the perfect fit here. And then you can operate underneath with Renfrow and with Darren Waller. At number 13, Jerry Jeudy is going to the 49ers. Again, this fit is just a too perfect a fit. Jerry Jeudy kind of basically fits that Shanahan offense to a T. It's all about route running and timing, and that's what Jerry Judy's like the best at. He's not the best in terms of, hey, I'm going to run over a bunch of people, but in terms of getting open, yeah, he's going to get open, and they really need a receiver like that for Jimmy Garoppolo. Just someone that's like, hey, he's always open. So I think that would become Jimmy Garoppolo's brand new friend, and that could be a guy that could definitely compete, to lead that team potentially in targets, because Deebo Samuel doesn't really profile as that. Deebo Samuel is more of the guy that's going to run guys over yards after the catch, whereas Jeudy, I think, will really operate and rack up a ton of receptions there. At number 14, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it's going to be Andrew Thomas. They've got to get, some line help for Tom Brady. Again, Tom Brady is 43 years old, and he's no spring chicken, that's for sure. So get some line help. Andrew Thomas, who is probably a great value here, especially at 14 as the fourth tackle here. I've seen him going as the number 1 tackle on a lot of people's ranks. So Andrew Thomas here is the pick at number 14. At number 15, we're going back to the Denver Broncos, and they're going to draft a cornerback. They lost Chris Harris through free agency, so I think that they nearly need to get another corner to pair on the outside without Boye and Callahan in the slot. So I think Henderson is really the best guy here. I think he's my number 1 corner left, or remaining, especially at number 2. So I think that he's a great fit here. They got to solidify that defense, get back that no-fly zone. No-fly zone there in Denver. At number 16, the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to go with Javon Kinlaw. They have really not... Their defense has basically been a shell of itself. Guys get hurt. But I think if you pair him up with a guy like Grady Jarrett, I think that's just going to be huge for the Falcons. Beef at that D-line and upgrade the pass rush, because they're going to be in a lot of games. You look at these teams like the Saints, the Buccaneers, teams that are going to be throwing the ball a lot. They need to have a pass rush of some sort, or at least something that's disruptive that can really make a difference in a game for them to win. Now at number 17, maybe this is a shocker to a lot of people, but I'm going with Yetur Gross-Matos. So the Cowboys desperately need help at the pass rush position, and edge kind of falters off a little bit here. So, maybe they go somewhere else with a corner or safety or something like that, but I just feel like they need to just kind of take stabs at pass rush. They signed Aldon Smith, for heaven's sakes. They are just trying to find any type of pass rush opposite DeMarcus Lawrence, which is a kind of way to identify this. It's they don't need necessarily a stud guy, but someone that's hey, if you're one-on-one, can you win one-on-one? Because we know that Lawrence is going to get, double teamed. He's going to get more attention. We saw that with Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn was really dominant because, a lot of guys were paying attention more to DeMarcus Lawrence's side. So it's safe to say also the Cowboys have a type when it comes to these types of pass rushers. If you look at Gross-Matos, he's 6'5", 266, 34 7/8-inch arms. That's prototypical Dallas Cowboy pass rusher, guy that they drafted in the first top 3 rounds. They like those lengthy guys, which Yetur Gross-Matos fits. So I like him here at 17 to help that pass rush. And now at number 18, he's still there. You got Justin Herbert. The Dolphins don't even need to trade up. They don't even need to take him with their top pick. He's there. The value is so great. Steal at 18. They get their quarterback, and he has a good tackle to take him. I could obviously see a scenario where the quarterback goes first and they take a tackle after, vice versa. But guys drop. It's weird how this works. We always pencil in guys as first-round picks, and then the teams get them. Those same teams end up getting them later. Comes to mind Drew Lock last year. Everyone penciled him in first round to the Broncos. He went to the second round of the Broncos. Another guy like Jamar Taylor, who was a Jacksonville offensive lineman that people penciled in. He didn't go in the first round. He went in the second round of Jacksonville. So just a kind of couple of scenarios there that I wanted to lay out. At number 19, we have the Raiders back on the clock in Las Vegas. I like Trevon Diggs. A lot of people have him going outside the first round. I think that he is a first-round corner, and they need cornerback play desperately. And the fact of the matter that he fits the scheme set really well for the Las Vegas Raiders, with a lot of cover 1, cover 3. So I think that his skill set really fits what the Raiders want to do, and he's going to have to be ready to cover some of those Kansas City Chiefs receivers. At number 20, Jacksonville, back to the defense because they traded everybody away. Christian Fulton, this is who I picked in my first mock draft. I just think it makes a lot of sense. He's the best corner that I have left, so I think it makes a lot of sense for just them to grab another corner because I don't know who they have left. They traded away everybody, and they need to rebuild. So what better way to rebuild with 2 guys from the best college defense in the NCAA last year than with Chason and with Christian Fulton, both guys from LSU. Yeah, it's right. It's also right next door, so we'll get them building out. Next, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. I really like this pick, and it's Justin Jefferson. Jefferson, they need upgrade at wide receiver. Again, another LSU player, shocker. But Jefferson can dominate out of the slot. Aguilar is gone, and if you recall, in 2017 with Carson Wentz, Aguilar had one of his best seasons, and he actually led all slot receivers in touchdowns. And they were really not very they couldn't rely on Aguilar again in the slot. He wasn't consistent enough. He was always getting hurt. So now you have a guy like Jefferson you can put in the slot, and you can use him there. You can then flex guys like Goddard outside and Zach Ertz. We don't know necessarily how they view him long-term. They drafted his replacement in Dallas Goedert. Jefferson and Goddard and Goddard could potentially really dominate both out of the slot, but I like Jefferson out of the slot. But also, Jefferson played outside last year, not in this previous season, but 2 seasons ago. So he can move into the outside as well. So I don't necessarily think that he's a guy that's, we're going with the slot receiver. And he can also, stretch the field a little bit too. So I like Jefferson for the Eagles there at 21. At 22, Jeff Gladney. Again, another corner fit that's just too perfect. He checks all the boxes off for a Zimmer corner. They got rid of a lot of guys that were getting older. Xavier Rhodes, for example. Rhodes were all open, but Gladney's going to shut him down a little bit. So I like Jeff Gladney here at 22 for the Minnesota Vikings. At number 23, my New England Patriots. Here we go. Drum roll. We've got the New England Patriots, and they're going to be going with Kenneth Murray. I think that, I looked at this, a lot, and the fit is pretty good, I think. Their linebacking core is depleted. Van Noy's gone. Jamie Collins is gone. Landon Roberts is gone. And this is a guy who's just been, a starter since day one at Oklahoma. He's been doing it all. He plays all 3 downs. Hightower's a free agent after this season, and they want to build the defensive side of the ball. They've literally made no accolades of hey, we got to do X, Y, Z on offense. They've spent high draft capital in the past few years on running backs, on wide receivers. And maybe this is going to be the year they all kind of come to fruition. But, at the time, let's keep building up that defense. The defense is definitely the strength of the Patriots, and they're going to build on strength. I think Kenneth Murray's too good here to pass up. And now, our next guy, linebacker Patrick Queen. So Patrick Queen, again, you can go kind of either way with Kenneth Murray or Patrick Queen. But the Saints, have a pretty strong roster already built out. But I think that Queen just helps them with that linebacking core as a final pair piece to go with Demario Davis at number 24. And number 25, we got the Vikings back on the clock, and Denzel Mims, wide receiver from Baylor, senior. He dominated the Senior Bowl, and it just makes a lot of sense for him specifically to be a guy that they can kind of come in. He is a little bit different than Stephon Diggs. He's not the same, but what they love about Denzel Mims is that he's got a nasty run blocker. He's physical, and he loves the run block, and they're going to love him there. So maybe for fantasy purposes, we don't want to get too carried away with Denzel Mims. But again, he can play big on the outside, big and physical receiver. He's going to be able to run guys over. So Denzel Mims at 25 to the Vikings, I think is a good fit for a team that shown that we want to run the ball. We use a lot of 2 tight end sets. Denzel Mims can be a good guy on the outside when they can even flip Thielen back inside. At number 26, you got the Miami Dolphins back on the clock. A.J. Epenesa. If you look at Epenesa, he's been compared a lot to Trey Flowers. And, who was just with Trey Flowers? One of his best seasons was Brian Flores. So, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So I think that Brian Flores sees A.J. Epenesa as a potential guy that he can use as a way to Trey Flowers. Trey Flowers took a little bit of time to develop. They got plenty of time with Miami. So take A.J. Epenesa in the first round. Don't necessarily need him to get 30 sacks, double-digit sacks, double-digit sacks for the Miami Dolphins in year 1, but he can, do a little bit more there, long-term, kind of similar to how Trey Flowers was used up in New England for the Patriots. At number 27, we got Terrell Lewis. It looks like Jadeveon Clowney's not going to sign with the Seahawks, so again, they need a pass rusher here. So I like Terrell Lewis. I think that he's the best one on the board that's available. Again, maybe they make a run at the Jacksonville guy, Yannick. So we'll see what happens there. But again, in the meantime, I think that they're going to go with an edge rusher here with Terrell Lewis. Next on the clock is the Baltimore Ravens. And I think this is kind of under, people haven't been talking about this as much, but Marshall Yanda retired, and he wasn't just a guy. He was a pretty good interior offensive lineman. And the way that Baltimore operates so much, they're really heavy on the run game, obviously with Lamar Jackson. So, and also protecting the inside is a little bit different because there'll be times where Lamar Jackson will literally step up and run up through, the A gap or the B gap into those, with the guards. It's always just running to the outside the tackles. So I like the idea of building out that offensive line with a guy who can not only play center, but play guard, and they can kind of move him, whatever they see best fits. So Cesar Ruiz at 28. Baltimore basically, is already kind of a built-to-win team now. We saw last year, but I think just helping, do whatever they can to help protect Lamar Jackson, take the best interior offensive lineman in the draft makes a lot of sense to me, at least. At number 29, Austin Jackson. Again, the Titans lost Jack Conklin. I think this is just too perfect of a fit there. This is what I did in my mock 1, but again, I just think it makes too much sense. They need a right tackle, Austin Jackson. great right tackle, locked in replacement for Jack Conklin. Get Derrick Henry another 1,500 yards, maybe 2,000 yards. Derrick Henry. Let's see. Is it going to happen? Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Number 30, Jordan Love, quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Now, again, Packers fans probably going to like this. No one's probably going to like this, honestly. I don't even like it. But Jordan Love is going to go in the first round. But it was so hard for me. I put a poll on Twitter. I was trying to figure out where he could go, and someone said the Saints. I'm like, I just can't see that. They have at least some guy there with Taysom Hill. Only the Patriots are going to take him. I think the Patriots want to use Stidham. But, it makes sense. If you look at Aaron Rodgers' age, technically they took, when it was the whole Brett Favre was still there, they took Aaron Rodgers with the same age right now that Brett Favre was at, that Aaron Rodgers is at now. So it's probably just going to piss off Aaron Rodgers, to be totally honest. But maybe that lights a fire under his belly, and maybe we'll potentially kind of get him to take a next step and play better. I don't know. But, again, I don't love the fit, but it just makes sense. They were virtually in contact with Love, so they are doing their due diligence. Maybe it's just hey, we're going to draft a guy, Aaron, you better play well, or maybe they just want someone else to trade up with them so they can get more picks. I could see a lot of different scenarios. But for now, Jordan Love is going to be the backup for the Green Bay Packers. For him, I think it's a great fit. He could learn under Rodgers. He doesn't have to play for a couple years. That'd be perfect. So we shall see. Next, we've got 31. We got Grant Delpit. 49ers, they need a little bit of help in that secondary with the safety position. I think Grant Delpit is probably the best safety here left on the board. He's an attacker, so he's a more aggressive, kind of complementing, what the offense can do. So Grant Delpit up at safety at number 31 for the 49ers. And at number 32, wrapping us up here, is A.J. Terrell, cornerback. They need a cornerback really badly. The Kansas City Chiefs do for sure. So they're going to take the best cornerback available here with A.J. Terrell from Clemson. He's a press man coverage corner, so he fits well with KC. He can be a number 2 cornerback, so they can build out that secondary a little bit more. So that's going to wrap us up, guys. So again, you have been watching the Underdog Sports Network with your host, Andrew Erickson. You can find me on Twitter at @AndrewErickson_, and this is our conclusion of the 2020 NFL Mock Draft 2.0. Let me know what you think in the comments. See ya.